and welcome back to the Film Library, a Kanopy podcast. I'm Kristy Puchko, entertainment editor at Mashable.
And I'm Jeff Rauseo, film lover, movie marathoner, and the guy who treats every underdog story like it's the seventh game of the World Series.
This week, we're lacing up, stepping onto the field, and diving into the wide world of sports movies. It's a genre that gives us triumph, tragedy, and everything in between.
From the boxing rings to basketball courts, soccer fields to dirt tracks, these films remind us why sports stories hit harder than a last-second buzzer beater.
So grab your foam finger, settle into the bleachers, and get ready for a highlight reel of sports movies that will have you cheering, cringing, and maybe even flexing in the mirror. Before we kick things off, I have a question for you, Jeff.
Yeah. What do you got?
What is the first sports movie that really hit you growing up and that you still kind of think about?
Man, I'd have to say there's a few I could throw in here. Honorable mention to Air Bud, because I love that movie and it made me love basketball. But this is kind of funny. I think it's still The Mighty Ducks, and it still holds up. That underdog story. All of the characters in that are iconic. I mean, you can literally still buy Adam Banks jerseys and Charlie Conway jerseys today and see them at hockey games. But it's funny because I never played a game of hockey in my life. Even growing up in New England, I don't even know how to skate, really. I could probably figure it out if you made me. But I was a basketball guy, never skated, but I loved that movie. There was something about it. It made me love watching hockey. I'm a big Bruins fan and I love watching it, but I just never played. But that movie is something about it. All those kids, they were, I felt like I could see myself. You see that team, and I've been on really bad teams like that then go on a good run. And, I played sports growing up, so it always kind of connected with me. And it's one that my kids aren't really interested in hockey either, but I'll definitely show it to them. It's just one of those classics.
I love that. I, funny enough, have a connection to a hockey movie, despite the fact not a personally hockey person, but Slapshot from 1977 was actually shot in my hometown. And cool. Not just shot there. I grew up in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, but shot around. I watched it when I was older because it's a rated R movie. For a lot of reasons, including violence. It is about a hockey team that is a mess in every way, including starting fights in the ring. There's also sex scenes. It's a lot. But it is such a wild, wild movie. And part of it for me is that, it was shot before I was born, but is still the town I recognize in a lot of ways. And bonus fact, for some reason, Johnstown, Pennsylvania was a hop-in space specifically for sports movies in this era. In 1983, we also had All the Right Moves with Tom Cruise, which is a football movie. And so if you want to learn more about Johnstown in the most backwards of ways, here are some less talked about but still very valid sports movies. And one thing I've found out is that Slapshot is so big in Canada that if I mention I'm from Johnstown in Canada, people go, Slapshot!
That's incredible.
And I go yes.
Oh yeah, that movie is still for hockey fans. That might be bigger. They still do the nights at they do them at Bruins games where everyone dresses up like the brothers. I mean, it's so iconic. That's funny that it's all in that. Who knew the history of was it Jonestown, Pennsylvania? Johnstown.
Jonestown's a different place.
We don't Johnstown. Don't look up Jonestown.
Yeah, just John. Just.
Johnstown. Well, I'm gonna dive in. Why? I wonder. Just the setting, just it being. What's it like? Why would they?
Yeah, come check it out. It's a truly a wild ride. I can't wait to hear you think when you've seen it. I don't want to say anything else. Okay. Watch Slapshot. Get back to me. But for now, let's dive into our picks. I think I'll kick things off. I went kind of classic for my first one. Raging Bull, 1980, Scorsese, De Niro. We're talking after Taxi Driver in New York, before King of Comedy. And it is De Niro. It's a biopic about a boxing champion, Jake LaMotta. And it is a story shot in black and white. It's gorgeous. Notably, big Oscar movie. De Niro won Best Actor from the Oscars. Thelma Shoemaker won Best Film Editing, which she is a legend. But what's so fascinating watching it, I rewatched it recently to prepare. And it is the aesthetic, because of the setting, it's the 1940s, because of the black and white. it kind of alludes like it's going to be these kind of old school golden era movies. They even talk about Elia Kazan's On the Waterfront with Marlon Brando. It's like this idea of a boxer that Jake LaMotta has. But the reality of this movie rejects that nostalgia by showing that in the ring, yeah, Jake, he's a beast, and he just, he will take a pounding, he will give a beating, he's into it. But outside of the ring, his insecurity infects the violence spreads. Like, he is also violent with the people in his life. And the way this becomes a portrait of a fighter in and outside the ring is just still very fascinating and still so heartbreaking, because like, you just watch all the pain he's putting himself through and the people around him through. And to like the way the movie reflects on that has an empathy, but also not an excuse, you know?
I think that's why boxing movies are so pop. That's such a tough sport, mentally, physically, obviously, what you put your body through, what you put your mind through. And Raging Bull is probably the watermark, I would say. I mean, maybe the Rocky fans will come out and fight me on that one. Maybe we'll need a boxing match to decide. But Raging Bull, for me, yeah, I think it's the number one. There's good contenders in that category, though. I have one on my list coming up. But my first pick was actually Game 6, which is this is probably not a movie a ton of people know. It was a smaller movie from 2005, but it actually has Michael Keaton, Robert Downey Jr., and Griffin Dunn. And it's all about Mike, played by Michael Keaton. They got very creative with the name of the character, who's a playwright, and he's got a Broadway show, and it's struggling. Opening night's on the way. He's super anxious, insecure about the whole thing. And at the same time, he's obsessively following Game 6 of the 1986 Red Sox and Mets World Series, which, a little bit of context, I'm a Boston guy. This was before I was born, but let me tell you, it's all I heard about until the Red Sox eventually won a World Series in 2004, because this is the infamous game where they should have won. They blow it at the end. The ground ball goes through Bill Buckner's legs, and the poor guy had his life literally kind of ruined by this moment. Like, Red Sox fans, until we won, it was like, Bill Buckner, you're the worst. It's horrible, and I feel bad because that game was not all his fault. But you have this massive failure, and so there's this like reflection back and forth, and the film is about much more than just baseball. It has all kinds of archival footage, but there's this Mike and his personal insecurities, and the game sort of being like this metaphor for you getting so close to triumph, and then this massive failure and loss and all these missed opportunities. And it's kind of cool. It tackles both those things using sports almost like this reflection, instead of just being a straight sports movie. It's a personal, kind of tight movie, doesn't have a huge cast. And I think it's just an underappreciated gem of a little real human film about life and obsession and ups and downs, and how the game kind of mirrors his life, and you really feel those stakes. It's really cool. And as a Red Sox fan, obviously, even though I wasn't alive for that game, I somehow still feel his heartbreak, because I've seen that clip played so many times growing up, and just knowing that was it for the Red Sox until they finally came around and broke the curse. It was a kind of a cool personal movie, and it came out a year after the Red Sox had actually won.
Oh, wow.
So it came out in 2005. They had finally won in 2004 for the first time in 86 years. So we had a little bit of relief, and then we could watch a movie about this terrible moment in our team's history, which is kind of neat.
That's so funny, because I hadn't seen that one. I don't know how I missed it. And the reason this is shocking, it's not so much that I'm like, oh my God, give me sports movies, but I am a Michael Keaton fan.
Yeah.
Deep to my bones. And when you said the cast, I was like, excuse me, what?
It's a great cast. Yeah, it's
Michael
a great
Keaton?
cast.
So I will definitely be checking this one out. And I appreciate the context. I don't know how much the movie gets into that, but I appreciate knowing all of that, because that is not something I, as someone from Johnstown, would necessarily know.
It hurts extra if you're a Red Sox fan who was living during that time. You'll feel this one for sure.
Well, that sounds really extraordinary. My next one is also about like the importance of games and sport, but in a very unconventional way. It's called Not Just a Game. It's a documentary from 2010 directed by Jeremy Earp. And it's David Zirin who is a journalist who talks about sports and politics and where they collide. And I know a lot of people are like, sports and politics have nothing to do with each other. Ha ha, says this movie. I thought this was such an engaging documentary. Like, it's talking about, everything from like football to the Olympics to Boston Marathon to bicycle face. And if you don't know what that is, good news, they get into it. But like, truly, it talks about how like sports inherently are tied to politics because of not just nationalism, but also what it very much focuses on American sports. So what we as a nation decide are the things we want to uphold. And so it talks about how gender plays into that, how race plays into that, how like sexual orientation plays into that. This came out in 2010. So it's interesting because like a lot of what they said still feels very relevant to these conversations. And it's very easy to kind of think where those conversations might go now. But I personally, there are things in there that I knew. Like it talks about bicycle face is very specifically about when women started becoming more athletic and riding bicycles. There were essays written about like, it'll make their uteruses explode and they'll get bicycle face. And I still love that deeply as just I love a hysteria. But they talk about that. They talk about, what it means when people in powers of position because of sports fame decide to get into politics, decide to enroll into the military. And it's just so fascinating, whether they're talking about people who decide to get involved in politics, like Muhammad Ali or Michael Jordan, who decides distinctly not to. It's just a really fascinating thing because it does put into perspective, like, what are we talking about when we talk about American sports? And it's a pretty short film, really, but I think it's like an hour long. But I was just laser focused, and it's just so fascinating because every sports movie I have watched since watching it, I'm like in my head and being like, and what does that say about us, what our national identity, our character, and like what we want to put out there? And I just think it's a really fascinating essay that still holds up.
No, it does, and I will back you 100% on sports and politics. I took a class in college called exactly that, and that was in 2012, I took sports and politics as part of my political science degree. We watched this movie. We watched some of the Muhammad Ali documentaries, some stuff about current events in sports. I mean, think about international Olympic committees and the NCAA and all the stuff that's going on. Like, there's politics. And so, yeah, that movie does a great job kind of laying that out. If you've ever thought like, no, like, Michael Jordan, what did he Republicans buy sneakers too is one of my favorite quotes. So bringing that up is very funny. It depends on who you are as a person, but
sure,
it's always there.
That's what I thought was interesting. I don't think this documentary is exactly taking sides. It's saying like, this is what's happening. This is how this conversation has evolved.
Yeah, it's making you think and pointing that out and saying you can't just, I guess you can just blindly be a sports fan, but there are a lot bigger things happening within that world.
Right.
Whether you want to notice it or not, it's happening.
It was very exciting to me personally because as a film critic, I'm constantly fighting the battle of like, no, your favorite action franchises do have something to say. Mm-hmm. And like to see that applied to sports was helpful for me, who is someone who like, I will watch a sport, but I don't follow the teams and whatever. So my exposure to sports is very superficial. So for me, this was a really exciting thing because it felt like somebody being like, come with me, let's get into it. Yeah. And I love a documentary that just grabs me by the shoulders and pulls me right in.
No, for sure. And yeah, that's why that class opened my mind to a lot of stuff. I took film and politics, sports and politics, did a lot of stuff in politics at that school. We had one cool professor who did all that. So shout out to Professor Gerson, who had all those classes because those are awesome. But easy segue here because my next movie is all about a town where I went to school, which is Lowell, Massachusetts. And it's a boxing movie that I teased. It's The Fighter from 2010, which I think had a lot of hype when it first came out. And now I feel like it doesn't get talked about maybe as much as other boxing movies do. I don't hear it come up in the same conversations as like a Raging Bull or Rocky, but it's a little bit more than just boxing too. And so the basic plot is you got Mickey Ward. He's this boxer from Lowell, Massachusetts. He's trying to advance his career as a boxer. He's got a half-brother, Dickie Eklund. So this is Mark Wahlberg is Mickey Ward. Christian Bale is Dickie Eklund. And Dickie is this former boxer who's battling addiction, like very hard battle with addiction, who's also like Mickey's trainer, and trying to support him. You get into a lot of family dynamics. Melissa Leo is amazing in this movie. Amy Adams as Mickey's girlfriend, Charlene, directed by David O. Russell. Like it Oscars were written all over this thing when they made it, and it did well. But what I really like about it is it's one of the most authentic portrayals of this area, because a lot of stuff being from New England, there's a lot of films about New England. And I watched The Departed and I go, that's a lot. It's not quite that. I watched The Town and I go, okay, it's not quite that. There's very few movies. And like Lowell is kind of its own unique town, and having gone to, or really a city, and having gone to college there, like Mickey Ward is truly the face of Lowell, Massachusetts, and still is. Dickie still walks the streets and just kind of hangs out and is that guy that everybody knows in the community. And luckily he's cleaned himself up. I think he's been sober for a while, at least last I checked. He came to my class and talked. It was really cool. He gave us history of the city. But they really, it was so, I see in their family, like I knew those people. Mm-hmm. Like those people were on the bus with me while I was riding the shuttle bus to class. They were in my family. They were in friends' families. Like it was a real authentic portrayal of this kind of older mill town too, that was going through some stuff as they were going through stuff. Like it's had a resurgence now with the college there. But at that time, that was a tough place. That was not a place like you went to just for fun. And you see it, and then you see them kind of grow out of that and evolve. But it also has some of the greatest like boxing moments. Like the fights in this are incredible. And if you watch The Real Thing, like those fights are also incredible. If you're a boxing fan, Mickey Ward was a monster. Like his fights were tough. It was gritty. I mean, it was what they showed in the film. But it's just such an interesting look at that area that I grew up. I went to college there. I grew up in the town right next to Lowell. So it was always, I lived very close to the border. We went and played Lowell in sports. They were in our high school conference. Like I knew Lowell very well. And I give David O. Russell a lot of credit for like nailing. It's not Boston. It's a suburban city outside of Boston, 40 minutes north. And there is a difference, and they didn't overdo it, and like really captured that area very well.
I love that. I don't have a great segue for our next one, because since I was like, I'm talking about all this heavy sports stuff, I was like, I need a change.
We got to go light.
Yeah. So I'm going out on Shaolin Soccer from 2001, which I remember seeing in theaters and just hearing the audience roaring with laughter. This is from director Stephen Chow, who also stars. We talked before about Mighty Ducks. This is also an underdog dog story. It starts off with a guy who is a has-been soccer player who wants to get back in it. He wants to get back at the guy who ruined his career, who runs a team called Team Evil. So it's not subtle.
It's very pointed.
Yeah, this is a parody, so they're kind of having fun with the underdog. It's the plot line you remember, but pushed to an extreme. And he meets this Shaolin kung fu fighter who genuinely believes if everybody knew kung fu, the world would be a better place, because they could use it for all kinds of things, like catching the bus, or gardening, or recovering from a fall. And he just envisions this world that you get to see come to life through his imagination. And then as the movie goes on, he rejoins with his brothers, and he's like, you should come and join me, we're all going to join a soccer team, and when we win, the whole world will be better, because people will see what we can do and be like, I should also learn kung fu. And along the way, he meets this woman who makes buns, and he falls in love with her. And it's this very sweet, very strange movie that is like watching a Jackie Chan movie and a Buster Keaton movie. And there's all these references that are, there's slapstick, but there's also fighting. And when the soccer match happens, it hits those expectations you expect from oh no, they're going to have a low, things are going to go bad. But everything is crazier, because when they're doing badly, everything is just epically hilarious in a very kind of dodgeball sort of way, to reference the movie, not the sport. And when things are going well, it's like a super hyped up martial arts movie where literally flames will burst from them, and Like they start doing impossible moves, and like, do the effects hold up? Look, even at the time they weren't great. That's not the point. Like the point was it kind of enhanced this attitude of this kind of scrappy team that like somehow the effects being a little hokey even at the time like fit the aesthetic. But yeah, I rewatched it, and like I will say, not all the jokes hold up. So some of them have fallen a little out of fashion. But overall, still a very, very funny movie. Still a surprisingly heartwarming movie for as deeply, deeply goofy as it gets, and just such a treat. Like Shaolin Soccer still hits hard.
I need to go see this. I have not seen this movie.
Have you never seen Shaolin Soccer?
I've not seen this movie, but it sounds right up my alley. I love a good parody.
I'm so excited. You would love this.
Okay.
I can confidently say.
Okay.
I'm excited.
Add it to the watch list. You sold me on that one. No, I haven't seen it. It reminds me of a lot of other movies that I really like. So
I just convinced someone to watch a sports movie. I feel like I need to call my parents.
That's huge.
I don't think it's never happened before.
No, you've got me. I'm sold. I'll take it. So adding to the watch list on Kanopy right now. But yeah, I kind of went light with my next one too, because I went kind of heavy. And you know what? We can't go heavy all the time. And this one is, I would say, one of the most 80s movies ever. And it's Rad from 1986. I mean, just the name alone is so 80s. It's peak 80s energy. And it's all about this small town teen who's obsessed with BMX racing. And he's just determined to compete in this legendary competition on the Hell track. And of course, you've got the family members being like, you can't do this. And you've got authority figures like, you're wasting your time. And rival cyclists who are like, you suck. I mean, all the stuff you see in all these like 80s movies. He ends up hooking up with he's got his romantic interest who helps him persevere. It's actually Lori Loughlin. And you know, that it just all kind of culminates into this final high energy, adrenaline fueled, daring race. And it has all of that humor. It's got a little bit of the drama. It's got the sports action. It's got all the kind of rebellious, youthful, passion in it. But I love it. It's from before my time. And I had people who grew up in this time and told me like, you need to, this is it. Like you've seen the 80s movies, and this almost feels like a stereotype now. Cause like we all know like the 80s bad guys, and like, it feels almost like one of those like ski movies where like you get the bad guy and they're going to have a snowboard race at the end. And like it's very much that, but with bikes, which when I was growing up was super cool. And so I watched this when I was younger, appreciated it. People are like, you got to watch it again now that you have like a real brain on your shoulders. And I did, and like loved it even more. Like it was way better than just like cool bikes. Like my kids would watch this now and be like, cool bikes. But like the soundtrack, the neon, the cheesiness of it. Like I just love every ridiculous second of this movie. And it was kind of, to put in my physical media collector brain on for a long time, it was really hard to find. And they finally put out like a great 4K release of it a few years back. It's like one of those movies that you can't believe got like remastered and has this beautiful limited edition, but it does because it has that big a cult following. And I love
that.
It's so much fun. It's just fun. That's it. I mean, it's just cheesy fun.
I will say that is a blind spot of mine, so I'm going to add that to my Kanopy queue, my list. But I have a question for you, because while preparing for this, I filled another blind spot of mine that was BMX related. How does it compare to BMX Bandits?
I don't know.
Oh,
what's BMX Bandits?
All right, cool. Bonus episode. BMX Bandits is a Australian movie from 1983 that stars two guys, but Nicole Kidman. And it's about like, they're like, oh, we gotta, does that sound Australian at all? Oh,
that was pretty good.
We gotta find a way to buy ourselves some new bikes. Our bikes got wrecked, eh? And that's horrible. Sorry, Australia. But they find a bunch of walkie-talkies that they decide to sell to their friends, but then it turns out those walkie-talkies belong to criminals, and so now they have criminals chasing them around, and they're like, we'll get away on our BMX bikes. It's a lot. I did think that Shaolin Soccer was a stronger choice for for today's discussion.
That sounds cool, though. That sounds like it's that 80s adventure movie mixed.
Yeah.
It's the Goonies plus Rad. Like,
Yep, exactly. On Kanopy. So a bonus selection for everyone there.
Well, now I've got one too. That came out before Rad. Oh, hey, maybe they copied some of it. Who knows? BMX bikes apparently had a moment there in Hollywood and cinema.
Right? Little did I know. Sort of my time, but I was, still watching. I was gonna say Barney, but that was much later. I was still watching Muppet Babies. That's where I was at. But I think that's a wrap on Sports Movie Spotlight. We hope your watch list is now full of underdog triumphs, hard-fought battles, and maybe a few surprise slam dunks.
Yeah, we'll drop all of our picks in the show notes and over on Kanopy's Letterboxd HQ account. If you want to stream any of these champions of cinema, just head to Kanopy.com. It's totally free with your library card or university login.
Be sure to subscribe to the Film Library so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. And if you like this one, leave us a review. Or better yet, tell us about your favorite sports movie moment.
Yeah, was it a last-second buzzer beater or a Rocky-style training montage or a comedy where winning just didn't matter at all? Drop your picks in the comments or tag us on social media.
You can find me on Instagram at the Kristy Puchko, but I'm also on Blue Sky and Letterboxd. Just search for Kristy Puchko. That's KristyPuchko.
And I'm Jeff Rauseo. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Letterboxd, anywhere the internet goes. Just search my name, JeffRauseo.
Thanks for listening, and remember, sports movies prove that glory lasts longer on film than on the field.